Welcome to the Inside Integration Podcast. My name is Chris. I am joined, as always, by my friend and partner Jason.
What's up, everybody?
And today we're going to look a little bit into Jason and I were just talking offline, and kind of coming up with some ideas at the very last second, as we do. And
That's how we plan.
that's that was our planning meeting, like literally 30 seconds before you're hearing our
Yeah,
voices here.
let's turn the mics on and see what happens.
Yeah, why not? Right? It hasn't failed us yet. We're
Oh, well,
50,000 episodes into this thing, or whatever.
what are we going to do for 100 episodes? Before we get into this, if we hit 100 episodes, like, what is that? Is that a trip to Hawaii? Is that like we need to maybe look at the calendar and figure out where that actually
I mean,
is?
perhaps our new corporate overlords would like to sponsor a trip. Maybe we maybe we have an inside integration cruise. As
Right.
the aging
Oh,
rock stars do. Maybe that's what we do.
wow. Yeah, you
Take
can.
take our 5 listeners on a cruise. Maybe in like a 10-foot inflatable Zodiac down here in Dana Point. We could have a
No.
nice.
It's a river ship that goes from Astoria, Washington to Kennewick, Washington. It's got paddles on the side, and I'm talking about a real thing. It's called American Cruise Lines,
Yeah,
and it is really like a kind of like a big houseboat.
there you go. That's
So
what
every ripple on the water, every idiot with a pontoon boat that goes by, you're gonna feel it. You're gonna know it.
what could possibly go wrong? And it's
Now
on a
it's
boat, so there's the implication. But
Well, you will be smoking cigars, wearing a top hat like a fine Western
monocle.
gentleman. Exactly. Uncle Moneybags or whatever from Monopoly.
Yeah.
That's going to be you strolling the deck. Be
But
good.
before everybody tunes out, what we came up with in an idiotic conversation like the one we just shared with you was
Yep.
is I am I'm kind of getting this feeling, and I think you are too, that it feels like the AV part of custom integration is stagnant or dying or just kind of leveled in here. You're on a road a lot more than I am. So you kind of see it firsthand where guys are, and we've heard this from some manufacturers, and we've heard this from some other people. It seems like there is a real, like, just kind of, you know a level, right? Like we're here. It's You can only put in so many speakers, you can only do so many TV technology is kind of where it's at. Control systems are just kind of treading water, it seems, waiting for the big fight with Apple whenever it comes,
Right.
or whatever that is. And the real growth is in shades, in lighting, in whatever. You might even want to
Right.
squeak wellness in there, as much as I hate to say that. you know there's like, i I got nothing wrong with anybody who works in wellness, but like pitching wellness to CI guys is like, what am I going to do, put it in air,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's like drilling into a stranger's teeth, right? It's just like, here, let me open your mouth and let me drill in here and
Right.
tell you how wonderful this is going to be.
You're my AV guy. I don't need to talk to you about wellness. I want to see the biggest TV I can. Like
Right.
there's always going to be that. But I mean, I think it contributes to, and maybe our audience feels the same or whatever. But you and I kind of came to the conclusion that, yeah, it's sort of, we're sort of like there as far as
Right.
AV goes. And it's kind of funny because most people that you talk to, when you ask them what they do, like if they're in this industry, hey, what do you do? The first answer is AV, right? Like right out of the gate. Like nobody gets into a long discourse about, like, well, I'm the concierge of cool, and I do, I do
Well, if
computer
they listen to this
networks.
show, they do. That's what's the start there.
Figure we'll start the drinking game off right,
Yeah.
right early.
Right. Well, it's 10:30 a.m. On a Tuesday or a
Yeah,
Monday even. Sorry,
Monday.
we're
Yeah,
recording early,
that
so
that'll be a T-shirt someday. We'll have some nice
yeah,
swank, like 1970s text that says like concierge of cool, and like,
agreed.
I
That's
mean,
gonna
maybe
be
maybe we can get Joe Utley to give us like a, yeah, like, that would
yeah,
be
ties that ties back into our earlier monocle top hat cigar drinking gambling conversation. But
completely,
uh,
completely.
I will just say to kind of support and kind of what spawned our conversation earlier was uh, just some thoughts that I had post travel, and
Post travel
just
clarity. Is that what
yeah,
we?
post travel clarity. I guess that's the way I would say it. So I've spent some time over the last week in a couple of different markets. Had a pretty harrowing drive between Battleground, Oregon to
Hmm.
Bend, Oregon to Boise, Idaho. Let me tell you something,
In
buddy.
the
Just
snow.
little
Yeah.
sidebar, little little sketchy. Not not icy. I would say very icy. But I survived. I lived to tell the tale. But in that journey, we having the conversations with frankly some of the best integrators that we have in the market, and you can see where the exact thing that we're talking about is happening in real time. You've got people that are at different levels of proficiency, uh, super high levels of proficiency when it comes to AV control and stuff like that. But then you see them, the octopus arms start to reach out, and hey, let me reach out into this power segment. And certainly with lighting and design, you look up in the ceiling, and I can count on, I think we're almost at 100% with every conversation that we had. Look up in the ceiling and go, oh crap, there's some 6-inch cans in the ceiling. What can I do to get rid of that? And maybe there's another brand that they put in there that screws in with an Edison base or something else that just frankly ain't cutting it. Like, what have you got? Like, what are those solutions? To a man, I think like literally almost 100% of everybody that we talked to had that exact same scenario. I want to execute this, and what solution do you have that's not just DIY, screw it in? And for anybody that doesn't know what Edison base is, just look at the bottom of a light bulb. That's
Right.
that's an
That's
Edison
what that thing is
base.
called.
That's what that thing is called. I learned that this week. It's really exciting.
Right.
But like what's a step up from that piece that puts me, the integrator guy, into a lane where I can be successful, learning to walk with lighting before I start to run.
Mm.
And certainly had some conversations with guys that are very successful, understand the space, and have sort of reached the other way. They've reached from lighting into AV, to varying
Interesting.
degrees of success. But
Well, I think
yeah,
that kind of
crazy.
feels like what everybody's fear is with electricians is, as far as integrators go, right? Like we've always been very defensive as an industry of saying, okay, your electrician could come in and do your AV or do your whatever, right? Like that's everybody always kind of bristled at that because
That's my
frankly,
lane.
high volt and low volt are two different worlds. And that it's interesting that you say that we're seeing this weird push the other way, because at the same time we're pushing firmly into fixtures, which which
Yeah,
is
which is their
definitely
lane,
right.
right? And they're
Right.
getting territorial about it, and even so much so in a state like Idaho, which I was shocked to hear. They've
Idaho.
lobbied, they've changed, they've changed the laws in that state to regulate what low voltage guys can do. So in a commercial environment, they're not able to just fly in there and start hanging cat cables.
Hmm.
Somebody in the larger larger electrical space lobbied government there to change the laws around that regulation. How much longer is it before that starts to happen in low voltage residential for homes?
Hmm.
Now all of a sudden you got to have journeyman, you've got to have a ticketed guy on your staff, or you've got to be that guy.
Right.
So again, a lot of sea change, and I think maybe that's the theme of this episode. But we're kind of seeing that happen in real time,
Hmm.
and it was uh, eye opening for me. I was going to say illuminating to make a bad pun, but it was eye opening to me how wide the delta is between where different firms are at, and not just based on the people that we talked to over the last week, but in a broader stroke. When I think back about conversations that I've had going back to before Lightapalooza,
Hmm.
we've got guys that are just absolutely scared brainless out of like, I'm not touching this. I don't, that's not my lane.
Right.
I'm just good at this. I don't want to talk to this. Versus guys that are like, hey, I'm having literally my best year in business ever. Well, what are you doing it with? Well, I'm doing it with lighting and shades. Well, what's your AV business look like? I I barely do any AV at all. My numbers reflect that.
Interesting. Yeah,
So
that's I mean that's a really interesting thing, especially that example where you've got guys who are established in AV and now, like they've picked up this mantle and now it's all lighting and shades like,
yeah,
huh,
like the name of their business has nothing to do with lighting or shades,
right.
like absolutely nothing. And it's even to the point where it's like, does having AV even mentioned in the title or the name of your, the imaging for your business,
Sure.
or sound or anything like that? Does that even make sense based on what's keeping the lights on around here?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and it does kind of reflect something that we've talked about a lot, and that's the concierge of cool concept and the whatever. Like, hey, anything that's technology in your home, like we are well equipped to handle it. Again, if that's a pretty good path to go down, right? If you're an integrator and you're working on a job, you're part of a project team with a builder and an interior designer and landscape architect and all that stuff. Like, if you could be the go-to guy for technology, that kind of covers everything. But yeah, you're right. I mean, that's out of the comfort zone of a lot of guys. And that story about moving from AV kind of into lighting exclusively is just such a, I don't know if it's an outlier or not, but man, it
I,
sounds like one.
but I don't think it really is. I mean, maybe just in their particular circumstance, it's just, hey, like we've fallen into this,
Hmm.
but by and large, based on our conversation, this is clients are less and less interested in speakers in every room. I think in a lot of cases, some of that stuff in at least in consumers' minds maybe has been a little oversold,
Hmm.
right? Or
Okay.
just I think it's a harder conversation to have in some cases with a customer to say, yeah, don't you want speakers in every room? Like some people don't, right?
Right.
Like they just don't. Like
Hmm.
even though I will tell you that you're crazy, and music in every room of your house, wherever you can get it, makes the space even better. I'm not the everyman, right? Everybody's got their own idea, so those are nice to haves or want to haves. Got to have lights. Like
Sure.
this is a must have, right? There's code and stuff that goes around with it. So when you look at it from a business opportunity standpoint, where we were talking before about partnering with electricians and utilizing the trades, one of the strategies that kind of came to the fore is talk to these guys. Like, you've got your builder, the person that you're working with has maybe two or three guys that he works with on a regular basis. He's got the craftsman, he's
Mhm.
got the cheap and dirty, and he's got the guy in the middle that he goes with all the time,
Right.
right? So figure
Right.
out what that guy's pricing
The guy
schedule
in the
is,
middle who he shops against the high guy and the low guy. That's your
right?
yeah, that's your entree.
Yeah,
Sure.
that's the dude, right? Go for the high end guy for the custom builds, and for the inexpensive ones are just like the, hey, we need to run some circuits. We go
Friend
with
of a
the
friend.
with the cheap guy. Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
But we're gonna go with our bread and butter. This is what we expect. Here's our pricing schedule, dude. Reliable, all that. Talk to that guy. Have a conversation with that guy and say, what is your pricing schedule? Where do you make your money?
Yeah.
What would it cost you to do this house? If I paid you that and we make a deal with the builder, and I'll even cut you in on the fixtures. All I want is this done this way,
Yep.
and I'd like you to use my fixtures, my pieces. We can get rid of all of these ridiculously ugly 6-inch halo cans
Right.
around your house, and we can upgrade your build, Mr. Builder, to something that, okay, yeah, it's not $30 a hole, maybe it's closer to $100 a hole,
Mm.
but in those higher impact areas or more, right? $100 a hole is still pretty darn cheap for low voltage lighting when you talk about what you can get out of it. But yeah, change the direction and start to be that octopus that is working in the lane or working in the direction of the guys that are having these conversations sooner,
Right. And
right? Because
it's
that's
like
it.
everything else. It's all connections, right? It's all kind of packaging yourself as like I am the technology guy, and to your point of reaching out to the other trades, the electrician on the project, and I've seen it plenty of times where if that guy doesn't have to deal with fixtures, he doesn't want to deal with fixtures. He doesn't want to deal with his supply house any more than he actually has to. He and
No.
if there's a mutually beneficial thing here where you provide the design, and maybe you farm that out to Light Can Help You or to another lighting designer or whoever, and you're the one specifying the fixtures, you're the one who's getting the vig on the fixtures, the incentive deals and the rebates and all of that stuff, and then you're sharing some of that revenue with the electrician so that he doesn't have to have a headache, and he's
He's
and he's getting
whole.
paid on it.
That's the whole thing, right? Like,
Yeah,
where's a great approach? What is this going to cost? What does this cost to do? Like, if you can get the trade and the builder on your side, all of a sudden it's hey, like, Mr. Builder, you get a higher spec and finish in your home. You can ask a little bit more for your house, right? You
mm-hmm.
can get a little bit more out of this for, I would say, a fairly nominal uptick in costs, certainly in some prime areas. Electrician guy, you get all your lights. You get to get all the labor. You get to put all that crap in.
Sure,
You knock yourself out. All I want you to do is wire up these drivers
right.
and put these little plates up where I tell you to put them and where you
Make the circuit.
regularly put the lights and make it work. And
Yep.
I will make the rest of the shit happen. That's it.
Yeah, and if there's any, and again, maybe I'm just kind of limited to the two markets that I've primarily worked in, where you know you you'll have electricians when the client asks for centralized lighting or whatever, and they'll end up just taking a closet and putting banks of radio Roth 2 switches inside of it, and that's the extent. And maybe that's good enough, but that's definitely something that you're going to see on a Facebook link someday.
Oh,
Someday soon
yeah,
somebody's going to post a picture.
AV contractors Facebook group where they
Yeah,
just totally wear you out for putting a bunch of X10 or HAI switches in a closet somewhere.
it's just an extension of what we used to see with X10 or HAI, right? It's like
Why doesn't
decades.
this work? I don't know. But did you look in the closet and make sure all the dimmers are turned on?
How did you even find a 10 position plate to put on that monstrosity, right? Like that's the business I want to be in, is selling 10 port gem plates for these guys. Like, wow.
It's incredible that some of the artistry, and I'll put that in loose quotes, but
Yeah.
around some of the HAI systems I saw, big ones, like,
Like,
I don't know, 30 something zone, like huge lighting systems. I'm like, oh,
you know, I tell you though, the difference is we were still figuring stuff out back then, right? Like we are fully matured as an industry, most of us at least. And back then it was, your centralized lighting system was relays in a closet or somewhere else, right? And then
that's
this all
true.
comes along, Lutron comes along, Vantage, and I can't remember the other one, the biggest one, Light Touch. That was it. That was the big deal. And yeah, that was still kind of in the figure it out phase, right? Like we've matured.
Sure. Well,
We're way
Colorado VNet,
past
man.
Colorado
I mean,
VNet, right? You
like
know,
those dimming panels, like I'll never forget. I mean, there's a video of me out there on the internet somewhere that I will never tell you where it is. But I'm slogging some Colorado VNet pretty hard, dude, and I've got a really bad haircut. So
hmm,
the internet detectives out there, knock yourselves out.
was
But
this the frosted tips phase? Is this the
this was not the frosted
Florida
tips
haircut?
phase. This was what would I call this? This was the transition between you had a kidney stone, so you were sick for a month, your hair grew out, and you decided to let it go long. This was somewhere a few months after kidney stone, so I'm in full helmet, just looking bad. It's Florida. What can I tell you? But another back onto the highway here. Tangentially, we
to
like to shoot
to
around.
our audience, I will pay a bounty if you find this photo and allow me to publish it far and wide.
Oh
You know,
yeah, I totally just wrote a check for that one.
hey,
Nice.
it's fine.
What can I do?
Make it up on
But I
t-shirt
mean,
sales.
you're right, right? Like this is I mean, Homeworks was when 2004,
Yeah, right around there. That's probably
something
about.
like that. Like when it really started to happen for the
Yep.
house, right? They
Hmm.
still had, I mean, they had panelized lighting for industrial for a long time, but when they'd scaled it down to make it sort of like, oh yeah, you could put this in a large residence. I want to say it's around 2003, 2004, or something like that. I'm not the Lutron expert, so I
Yeah,
don't
no,
know.
sure. But
Um,
I mean, again, like it's amazing to think about it though. Is like that was kind of the first foray. Like Homeworks Interactive was, or Homeworks,
nuts.
that was the first foray, and we're talking. I mean, it's been 20 years now, right? Like that's that's
Man.
been going for quite a while. And back then it was the same conversation as we're having right now. Should integrators be into, but back then you had a lot of guys who were, taking cabinet speakers and mounting mounting them in joists and that sort of thing. You didn't really have like, you had speakercraft, you had a couple other ones,
Yeah,
right?
it's Sonance, right? Like
Sonance
you had
was
some
there. Yep.
established players for sure, but that again, that market was still new
Whole
too.
different
And
world.
to your point, right? Like they're like, what do you mean? Oh, I just have to have this weird looking dinner plate on the ceiling and sound comes out of that. I can live with that.
Yeah. Well, and I think, and to get back to your other point there, where a lot of clients who don't want this stuff, I think a lot of that is mitigated by the demo, right? Like you have clients who are moving into this stuff. You have quite a few people who are now within striking distance of custom integration, having that in their homes, right? First time home buyers, folks who have never experienced this stuff before, folks whose only experience with audio has been a Sonos Play 5 or an Amazon Alexa Puck or whatever that is. And like you could definitely get those folks in the boat with the demo, right? Like you show them a space, whether in your space or a client space or the Sonance studio or whatever, where the music surrounds them and they don't have to worry about whether if somebody calls them and the thing interrupts the Bluetooth stream or whatever. These are that kind of demo to really open up people's eyes for audio at least is the same as the demo of getting people on the boat for lighting, right? So until you've experienced, if you're used to 6-inch halo cans,
You don't know
or
any better,
yeah,
right?
or not even recessed lighting or just boob lights or whatever, right?
Ugh.
Track lighting, until you like get into a space with that kind of thing and see what linear can do and different color temperatures and that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm absolutely shocked driving around my neighborhood at night and you know you kind of notice it out of the corner of your eye and you look over and there's wow, their lighting that I can see through their shades is like 6,000K. It
Right.
looks like an
Just
operating room.
ice
Yeah,
blue.
it's ice
Just
blue, right? Like, how can you live with that? Like, how
it
are
makes
you
your
not?
teeth glow really white though. It's
Yeah,
nice.
and
Right.
maybe that's the reason, right? Maybe they're not up on their dentistry or whatever, and that's why.
It's all
But
veneers. Want to make them pop.
it does it shows that and I don't the area I live in is pretty middle of the road, right? But like
Sure.
it goes to show how different perceptions are. And if you're used to living with something, then maybe you don't know it's better. Like I half of me wants to like knock on their door and like blow their mind with like a 3,700K fixture and just
Right.
pull
Or
it out.
let's just put a 2000K fixture in your house. Let's just try it.
Let's just
Okay.
try it. Let's just
Let's
see if this
just
is easier and
just
feels better.
let's just knock it down from 6K to 3K. How about we do that? Like let's just go half of the CRI
Yeah.
and let's bring the white point down quite a bit.
Well, and
Ooh.
so this is, I mean, it's a ripe market. And to get back to the larger point of, is AV dead? Is the AV part of custom integration dead? You could walk into any Best Buy and see any TV that you want. You can walk into just about anywhere and hear music and get demos. That's, these other categories. If you've never had motorized shades, they're magic. They're
Oh,
absolutely magic,
like I tell my wife about some of the solutions that we sell. I'm just like, when are we going to get that?
Yeah.
It's just like, oh yeah, we could have a timer, just roll the shades up at a certain time of day, and
I mean,
you know,
so maybe
oh,
that's why, right? Like it's maybe the AV part of this stuff is kind of played out. Maybe people have seen enough TVs. Maybe micro LED is what's going to kick off the next round of this, where
well,
nobody's really seen a wall-sized
well, I
display,
mean,
right?
honestly, I think there has to be, to circle back to our theme of sea change. I think for traditional AV, there has to be a change in what that is because you and I have both seen the, shall we say, generally acceptable picture quality of a $365 65-inch TV at a buying club, right? Like
Yeah,
we're back to 2011, 2010 when, premium HD TVs were just, why am I buying this? I can buy the $500 Panasonic
right,
that looks exactly the same as the $3,000 Panasonic.
right.
No difference that I can see, right? Just one
And
of
that's,
those things.
I mean, and that's always been a big part of our job as custom integrators, is really kind of pushing those benefits and getting people to come along and see what that is. Now, obviously going from are you drinking a glass of dirt water? Is that just dirt and water?
It's actually a fine espresso iced coffee,
Okay.
sir.
from from here it just looked like puddle
Well,
water. But anyway,
have you ever noticed that coffee has a tendency to look a slight bit like mud?
well, I guess it was maybe ice cubes in it. It just looked like tiny leaves were floating around, at least on the camera. So anyway,
Yeah, it's fine.
didn't mean
You
to
know,
disturb.
you gotta check out the video portion of this to see
I,
the disgusting mud that I just poured into my face. It's so
I'm
good.
sure it's absolutely lovely.
Nespresso, it's the best. We are not official partners of Nespresso, but we would like to be.
We don't support anything Nestle. Let me just stop you right there, sir. But anyway, but that's always been our jam as custom integrators is bring people along, right? Like we're the experts. We need to bring you along. It was a lot easier when, we were going from tube TVs to flat TVs on a wall and standard def to high def, and
Right. You can
you
see
know,
those, you can point to that sea change, right? You can say, here's a reason to do this.
right. Right. And, a couple of false starts along the way. Yeah, 3D TV is going to be the cat's meow. Oh,
Mm,
curved TVs are totally where we're going to go, right?
super dope.
It's super dope. Well, hey, Curve is back now with gaming monitors and that kind of thing. So everything that's old is new again. But that's always been our biggest thing is being that advocate for technology and kind of bringing people along. And yeah, maybe that's what it is. There hasn't really been a paradigm shift in audio or video. There hasn't really been anything earth shaking, groundbreaking, or anything else. Whereas in lighting, we're
Dude,
seeing
it's crazy. Yeah.
technology advancements and smaller and that sort of thing. And when you show somebody
Multi-element LEDs and no Edison base or smart Edison base, or
right,
here's a way to knock the bell off of your lighting can, and here's a dummy ring that looks beautiful that you can put a 4-inch fixture or a 2-inch fixture in,
right,
and wow, that looks like a a pretty decent upgrade.
yeah,
And
and
all of a sudden you're popping those at $100 a crack. It's
yep.
not a bad life, not a bad life to live.
And when you can go from a 6-inch round can that everybody's used to a 1-inch pin fixture, and it provides the same amount of light and the same cone and everything else, and you demo that for somebody and they're like, wow, that's a tiny little pin on my ceiling and I can paint it to match, and wow,
Right.
that's your eureka moment, right? So yeah,
100%.
I mean, I don't know where we go from here. I know that this industry is really pushing, lighting and shades and and all the things that are not necessarily AV,
I would
but
say I've seen some of that. I would just say firsthand. People are like, "Are people really doing this?" Yeah, they are. We're not name dropping here, but you hope that your friends in this business are not, pulling your chain. But I have several examples I can think of off the top of my head. Best year ever, 6 million, 7 million
hmm,
plus. Like we doubled our revenue. Well, how did you do that? It wasn't with AV. And you go, okay,
right.
well, how did you do it? Well, it was lighting and shades.
Yeah,
Okay, well, what about audio? Yeah, we're doing landscape. Like there are some, I would still say there's some relevant outliers in the AV space, outdoors and untapped,
sure.
and still
A lot of
highly
potential for growth
profitable
there. And
opportunity with the technology and the DSPs and all the things you can do to control sound.
yep.
That's a traditional AV lane that's blossoming quite healthily, but
And right along
video,
with that, outdoor lighting, right? Like, so outdoor audio is one avenue for sure. You can, try and you got to own that outdoor, right? Like that's your extra
yep,
living space and whatever. We've wall this for years,
sure.
but get in that with the lighting. So right now, landscape lighting is probably being done by the same guy who's doing the sprinklers, right? So,
Right.
you if if there was ever an opportunity to, for lack of better terms, eat somebody else's lunch, that might be the one. Right?
Or get out there with this guy and look for another partnership,
There you go.
build on your network,
Yep.
and get into those conversations before you're having them.
Yep.
Hey, you're doing the sprinklers here. Or do you do audio? Can we use the ditch witch to pull a couple extra lines to make sure that I've got, conduit or direct burial wherever I need it to go for the
Absolutely.
landscape system that we're trying to, where we're trying to include here. And guys go, oh well, once you get a partner into that and you start putting a little bit of grease on their wheels, the conversation changes. So where before you were talking about how everybody gets super territorial, I think this is a pretty low dollar way that pays for itself for you to grow your network if you're offering solutions where maybe you can get somebody else to do the labor and the infrastructure for you
Sure.
even. Hey,
Well,
oh yeah.
if you're
What's it?
digging irrigation lines, you might as well. It's same thing as, hey, if you're on site, you're pulling wires through a wall. If you're running conduit, you might as well run us a low voltage one. You might as well.
Would you mind? Here, I'll bring you the parts. What is that going to cost me?
Yeah,
Okay. What's your
absolutely.
hourly? Drill
Because
some holes for me. Nice.
piece of cake, and it's mutually beneficial, right? Like this is a good relationship all the way around, because now that landscaper is saying, probably in Spanish, that here's a guy who I would recommend, for every one of these jobs. Hey, here's the technology guy. Hey, here's pictures of his job that we did. Let me get you in touch with, my buddy, the AV guy, right?
Right.
And it all comes back to that.
Work on your outreach. Work on your networking. Work on your people skills. There's a lot of salespeople in this industry that are business owners. Just little piece of advice on that from what I see talking to some of the best out there. Um, Lighting is real. It's a thing. And when you look at the health of this industry, at least from my point of view, there's still some traditional AV holdouts, but until there is that new shiny object in the video lane or the traditional AV space that the general populace goes, "Oh, I'm aware of this. I need to have it."
Yeah,
This is an opportunity for everybody in not just a sales pitch in real terms to continue to grow your business and apparently make more money than ever for what I'm hearing. So something to think about. Something
it's,
to think about.
it's true. And if there was ever any question about which way the market is shifting, think about all these speaker manufacturers who are now making their speakers match lighting fixtures, right? You
and
can
and vice versa. Lighting manufacturers are like, hey, small aperture is a thing, 2-inch and 4-inch holes in the ceiling.
Let's go. Let's make
That's
all the holes look the same.
we make that.
Great.
We do 4-inch holes. We do 2-inch holes. Let's make those look the same.
Beauty. Love it.
Right. Love it.
Yeah, I mean, it's all converging, and like maybe the takeaway from this episode is, you know what, maybe AV is just kind of maintaining, but it behooves you to look to look into these other things, to look at people who know about these other things when you're making your hiring decisions, and bringing people
Right.
on board. Like, you know, these are the members of your team. This could really drive your revenue hard.
Yeah. AV specialist doesn't have the same earning capacity that it had even 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So having the portal open, having your eyes open and mind open to new opportunities is only going to benefit you, professionally, but also personally. I think it's always fun to learn new stuff, and based on my travels here over the last few months, I would say I've learned a lot here recently, and hopefully, some of that resonates with some of you out there,
Yep.
the four of you that listen.
All four of you.
All four of you. Oh, and we have a new one. We have a dedicated. I got to make sure I do this. We got to call out Whitney Hopper for listening. We love you, Whitney. We appreciate you. We've added a verified subscriber. Talked with her last week, and her husband Johnny both telling me, "Hey, we've been listening to this episode, and we're learning all kinds of things about this line or that line." And Johnny's like, "Man, she's asking me about what you guys are talking about, and trying to incorporate that into our business." And I'm like, "Oh boy,
There you
watch
go.
out." don't we pontificate, we kick it around a little bit, but we're
Always
by
nice
no
to
means
hear.
experts,
It's
and but it
always
is
nice to
nice to
hear.
hear. So Whitney, thank you, we love you, appreciate you.
This is a great industry that we're in, and full of just great people. Again, being at
100%.
being at Lightapalooza and bumping into people and seeing just the masses of this stuff.
Dude,
Really,
check out the videos that this guy made. Like, we should have started all that with this. Man, this guy killed it with the videos. He's like you're like the Spielberg,
oh
Scorsese,
god,
auteur of custom install videos now. I love it.
thank you. I would just
And I get half the credit for it, which is even better.
I would just throw out there the the only one that I really truly, obviously take a look at all of them, right? Because they're our partners. But since this is a pirate ship, the one that I would direct you towards is the lightheaded one, and make sure that you look at the bloopers, because it's just
Watch it
chef's
all the way to
kiss.
the end.
That's all I'll tell you.
Yeah,
But
that's good stuff.
yeah, I think that just about covers it, sir. So let's we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody. Check out our socials, all that good stuff, at inside_integration on the gram. Hit us up on the YouTubes. And as always, if you stayed this long and listened all the way through, we love you. Thank you. And we'll see you next time.